So we got yet again another package reveal for the next up of the Walmart exclusive Transformers Legacy Velocitron Speedia 500 collection. Man, that's a long name. But the really cool thing about this package reveal is it's a character and a toy that we have not seen yet. Now, granted, it's something that we were probably very easily able to predict how it's going to look. And all the bashes that came long before this reveal today also pretty much predicted more or less how this thing is going to look. Let's talk about today the Voyager class of Road Hauler. Now, for people that are not familiar with the character, and there is always new people coming into the Transformer fandom that are not familiar with Road Hauler, and even ones who are longtime fans that might not be in tune with what's going on with this Constructicon-colored Autobot. Well, long story short, a long time ago when Generation 1 first came out, there was the plans for the initial line of 12 Autobot cars for that first year assortment of toys. And the assumption was that Grapple was supposed to be part of that initial wave of 12 figures. And the assumption came from the fact that if you actually had a case of the original Autobot cars, they were one per case of the 12 different Autobot cars. But here's the problem. There wasn't 12 different Autobot cars. There was only 11. And Mirage was the filler. He was the 12th one, so there was 2 Mirages per case and everyone else was 1. It was a very weird thing. And the assumption was that this Crane Transformer that wasn't named at the time was going to be that 12th member and was kind of left out for whatever reason. Considering that in the show, there was this character that showed up, that looked exactly like Grapple, didn't transform, but was given the name Hauler, which implied that he was a sentient Cybertronian being that Cliffjumper knew, was that there was this character. And for years and years and years, the assumption always was that this was just an animation mistake, because Lord knows Generation 1 episodes 1, 2, and 3 of Mortem Meets the Eye was filled with animation mistakes, filled with audio mistakes, filled with script mistakes, filled with continuity mistakes. It was a little messy. So no surprise, this is probably just Grapple and they made a mistake. That was the belief. And even when you looked at stuff like supplemental material that existed around that time, like let's say the Transformers trading cards that they had back in 1984-85, the action cards, when they referred to that scene, they called them Grapple. So it's like, okay, case closed, it's done, right? That's it. But there was little things that were very weird, because the animation model that was used for this Hauler character in that one scene that he appeared in was unique in the sense that the way that his alt mode looked different than what Grapple looked like later on in Season 2. Season 1 Autobots had a very, how do I put it, modified kind of designs compared to their toy counterparts that they were based on. You could look at, again, it's the Fluoro-Deary thing. It's the Japanese influence of also some of those designs being made into animation, because Toei also worked very close with Sunbow at the time in those early episodes. So there was a lot of changes, and by the time you got to Season 2, you could put Sideswipe and you could put Red Alert next to each other, and it's 2 very different kind of designs. You could just see straight up right there. And it was the same thing where Hauler, his alt mode had a very different kind of aesthetic, just, in the fine details, compared to what Season 2's Grapple would look like in his alt mode, which was way more toy accurate, which was the thing. A lot of the Season 2 characters were more toy accurate in their general aesthetic, both in robot mode and in vehicle mode. So there was all kinds of little, what's going on here? What's that? Of course, you fast forward years later, and you have eHobby that was, and I've talked about this already a few times over the past couple of days, but I'll bring it up again. eHobby was looking to expand the expanded universe of the Generation 1 fiction. They were doing a whole bunch of exclusive eHobby repaints of the molds that they had available at the time, which is the Transformers book box reissues that we call them, the Transformers collection, but that's such a simple name. So a lot of us collectors, we just call it the Takara book box reissues, because they came in a folding box kind of style. And they got the Grapple mold. And at the time we had Hirofumi Ishigawa, who was working with Ihabi, and he's like, hey, there was this character called Hauler that kind of appeared in season 1 and just disappeared. And I mean, which wasn't a weird thing, because if you look at Mortem ECI parts 1, 2, and 3, there's some characters of the Generation 1 Autobot library that just show up and you never see them again, but that was the case. They get their one line, establish the character, and that's it. There was only supposed to be 3 episodes for this show. Let's move the toys. Obviously, something was changed along the line when they knew that the crane was not going to be part of the box of 12 figures in 1984. That's probably why they pivoted to kind of leave out the character and bring him in later on in the future as Grapple. But I digress. Ishigawa, sorry, I got off on a tangent there. Ishigawa, when he was looking at that first episode, went, hey, well, there's this Hauler character. Why don't we do something with that? Obviously, in Japan, that was a different story. The Japanese dub of the first episode that Hauler appeared in, again, Mortem Meets the Eye, Part 1, appeared in Japan in 1985, a year later. When that character appeared later on there, they didn't refer to it as Hauler. They didn't give it a name at all, and the fans just kind of assumed, well, if it looks like Grapple, if it's colored like Grapple, it's probably Grapple. If you saw like a character that looked exactly like Jazz in the background of season 1 of G1, and he didn't have a line and no one referred to him as Jazz, you're still going to assume it's Jazz. It's just how it is. If it looks like, it's just how it is. So Ishigawa was like, you know what, we're gonna go with what the Americans did, where they made that little mistake, and we're gonna call him Hauler, but we'll give him something that's a little more, not just Hauler, because that's too generic. We'll call him Road Hauler, and we're not going to give him that color scheme that he had in his first appearance, because then he'd look exactly like Grapple. We got to give him something unique, and that's where Ishigawa kind of dived deep into the history of G1, where the creation of Megatron that was shown in season 3 had a whole bunch of Constructicons around him, including some extra Constructicons, because there was more than 6 members. Maybe we'll give him a Constructicon color scheme. He was a former Constructicon that then turned Autobot. There's a lot of different kinds of, again, expanding of the universe and explanation of history. And that's where it kind of fell into that. And then, of course, they expanded on it even more when Sakamoto in 2015 with his Legends comic books, where he really filled the gaps in for a lot of G1 fiction, really established, he was one of those Constructicons present during the creation of Megatron. And that was that, So pretty cool stuff. Again, so that's where that character really comes from. He's just one of these obscure background G1 characters that eHobby kind of really brought to life with that color scheme. And that is that. So now we know that he's going to be part of this Velocitron Speedia 500 collection. He's going to be the Voyager class. It's going to be Walmart exclusive, MSRP $33.97. 2 per case. He's going to share a case with Override, so it's going to be 4 figures in a case, 2 Overrides, 2 Road Haulers, so it shouldn't be too tough to get your hands on it. And pretty cool stuff. Otherwise, again, I'm glad that we finally get to see what it looks like, even though it's probably the least exciting of the bunch in terms of oh my God, that's what it looks like. We all kind of had an idea just from all kinds of digibashes and just history telling us what it's going to look like. All that's left really now to be revealed of this Velocitron collection, because we've seen Black Convoy, we've seen Road Hauler now, we've seen Override, we've seen Clampdown. All that's left is Cosmos. Don't know what that Cosmos looks like. It's probably going to be awesome. We don't know what Burnout looks like, but we could probably take a guess. Legacy Skids repaint into black, already appeared in the comic books, so pretty obvious. Road Rocket, same kind of thing, also appeared in the comic books. We already see that it looks like a Legacy RC Deluxe Class repaint with a brand new head sculpt, so that's not going to be too much of a surprise. And a Blur that's included. So the 2 really big ones that I'd like to see now is what's that Cosmos look like, and what does that Blur look like? We have 4 that we haven't seen, but 2 of them we really don't have an idea of what they're going to look like. We could assume, but we don't really have a clear idea. So let's hope we find out some stuff soon. It's going to be a busy week. I'll talk to you all real soon.